Hello everyone, I'm your narrator from Grave Hush, and I'm here to help you unwind tonight. I know many of you use these stories to fall asleep, so before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Now, get cozy, take a deep breath, let your body sink into the stillness. It's time to relax and let the story carry you into sleep. Our first story tonight. Something stood outside my bedroom door every night for 10 years. I used to pray I wouldn't see it again and again, every night, buried beneath a pile of moth-eaten quilts, the only shield I had against the suffocating cold of that ancient farmhouse. But even then, I could feel it, that presence, that unseen force that drained every trace of warmth from the room and left nothing behind but a crawling, paralyzing dread. It was like something had latched onto me and pumped me with venomous anxiety. The worst part was, even though I couldn't see it, if I held my breath, I could hear it quietly approaching across the creaky floorboards of the house, making its way to me. Dad worked long shifts at the plant gone before sunrise, home after dark, always too tired to ask questions. Mum, well, I'm not really sure where she went. When she was around, she mostly slept or stared blankly at the television with Dad. The house had been her family's passed down like some rotten heirloom. She'd grown up in it with her mother, father, brother, and sister, none of whom we ever saw. She never explained why, just mumbled things about property disputes after my grandfather had died. Something ugly about who inherited what. It always seemed to come back to the house. Though we didn't speak to Mum's family, the stories lingered, whispers between my parents or from distant relations, when they would visit throughout the years. One of those stories stuck with me. When Mum was a child, her older cousin, who lived just across the street, contracted rabies. Instead of taking him to a doctor, his family staked him outside like some wild animal. They let him rave and howl until the disease burned through him. Mum told me she saw him once just before he died, crawling across the ground in jagged, awful movements, foam clinging to the corners of his mouth, eyes glazed. Maybe they thought it was the only thing they could do for him, or maybe the land just demanded sacrifices in the form of our suffering. Then there were the stories about grandfather. Strange, half-believed things muttered like prayers or curses. Mum said he'd been blown up in a chemical plant explosion. That's how she phrased it, blown up. Baby boomers had this way of talking about trauma like naming it made it. Smaller but he survived. Clung to a steel beam with one arm, while fire consumed the plant below. Dad said, although my grandfather was a small man, he was tough, the way all the men in our family were after the war. World War II had hardened them in ways no one liked to talk about. They came back from faraway jungles and blood-soaked islands, but not all of them came back right. Sometimes I wondered if something came back with him. Maybe the curse was older than him. Its roots sunk deep into the bones of the house. Or maybe he brought it with him from New Guinea, from the war, from some place my bloodline wasn't meant to survive. The strangest story was the one about his capture. The story goes that he and part of his platoon had been taken by a remote tribe, one that the brass said were confirmed cannibals. My grandfather had thought on his feet, trading the tribesmen parts of their jeep mirrors, shards of glass, anything that wasn't tied down for their lives. In return, the tribe's elders gave him and his company uncut gemstones, gifts, they said, or payment, or maybe a burden. He died when I was 5. I only have fragments of memory, a distant look in his eyes, the same unreachable stare Mom would, where for hours he used to burn things in a barrel out back. Most families had burned barrels then, an easy way to get rid of leaves, branches, things you didn't want to carry. Mom once said she nearly burned the woods down playing house with her dolls, making pine straw kitchens and trying to cook them dinner. Grandfather also had a habit of standing at the end of the long gravel drive, watching the road he'd take. Me sometimes, my small hand lost in his thick leathered fingers. We'd just stand there, silent, as cars passed by, one after another, watching, always watching, until I got bored and tried to tug him back to the house. But he barely moved, like something was still out there, and he was waiting. These stories were the air we breathed, things unspoken but understood. I accepted them with the same quiet resignation my parents did. I didn't have a choice. I did manage to make a few friends growing up, but most were kids from school who came over once for a sleepover and never came back. They'd cry at night, sometimes soft sobs, sometimes loud enough to wake the entire house. By morning, their faces were pale, their voices shaking. They said my house felt wrong, that there were faces in the shadows in places they should never have fit. I'd see them at school after the summer or after the Christmas holidays. They would tell me the same thing. My house was weird, I was weird, and their parents said they shouldn't talk to me anymore. I never blamed them, because every night, beneath those threadbare quilts, I prayed. I prayed not to see it, and every night I heard it coming. The thing, as I had come to call it, would linger just outside the threshold of my bedroom door. I don't know how I knew, but the sounds of its approach would always stop there. Sometimes I was lucky. I would fall asleep before it would come for me, but for the most part, I wasn't so lucky. All I could do was stare into the shadows where I knew it stood. My father admitted to having heard it. My parents would sometimes see it come to my room as the shadow of a man just out of the corner of their eyes. It was the only way they ever said they saw it, but I knew that vision was a lie. Whatever was coming to my doorway at night had never been alive. Although I had come from a religious family, I didn't think it was some fallen angel or demon. It was something else. It was its own thing, and no name really did it justice. As I meandered through my adolescence and into my teen years, it only grew in power, fed by our misery. Maybe it was because I had my mind on other things, like boys, or music, or even high, school drama and my part-time job. Always I dreamed of a way out of the house, a way out of the fear, not even to escape poverty or our sad lives, just a way to get away from the thing that lived on the cusp of my shadow. By the time I was 15, it had learned to slam doors and click light switches that no longer were wired to anything. The faucet would turn on at random when I was home, alone, and I continued to ignore it, because that was the easiest way. Only once do I recall Mum said anything about its activity without making light of it. Dad had been working away in Kansas on a job. Work had become scarce, and that left just the two of us in the house, living on Chinese takeout and fast food. Mum had lost the will to cook when Dad was away. You see, it happened when I was absorbed in some internet chat room talking to online friends I'd made over shared interests. Somewhere in the back of the house, I could hear my door distinctly slam shut. I assumed it was Mum leaving a stack of clean clothes on my bed. When I continued to ignore it, several loud bangs reverberated from down the hall. "Stop that. What's got into you?" Mum shouted. "That's not me." I sighed under my breath. The thing had won. For now, the sound continued. I already knew what it was, but Mum sprang past me, going for the pistol on her bedside table. I decided to follow her, and we crept down the hall together. As we rounded the corner, we caught one last glimpse of my door slamming itself and then slowly creaking open, as if something has released the knob and disappeared inside as not to be seen. My mother was on high alert. She was more lucid than I'd seen her in, really, forever. "Open the door, I'll cover you," she said, the pistol poised steadily over my shoulder. I did as I was told. I pushed the door open too. Nothing. My empty room, my empty bed. 2 windows with measured sticks in them so as to not be opened from the outside, in a house that was off the ground by glue, at least 2 feet with a crawl space underneath. I guess someone tall or with a ladder could have pulled themselves up from the outside. But none of the windows would open that way, either nailed shut or wedged, closed like mine. I know, super safe, but it was the 90s in Noharsville. I know I heard something. I saw, we did. It was the thing again. Are you still going on about that? Her powder blue eyes flashed up to meet my own, and she laughed. I thought, you had grown out of obsessing over those silly old stories, Mum said, lowering the pistol down at her side. Just got busy, I guess, with other stuff, I said. You know, I used to think something like that there was something scary that was coming to me. I used to see it, like it was there, but not there. What did it look like, I asked. Way more enthusiastic than I meant, but this may have been my only chance. Any other time, I asked, Mum had changed the subject, or said I was just a fraidy cat. Now there was proof. Proof that my parents had been gaslighting me my entire childhood. The faraway look in her eyes returned, and she didn't say anything for a long time. I waited, almost sure I'd missed my chance until she spoke up again, like thick white smoke. Like when we would burn pine straw at the camp to catch the logs on fire, remember? I nodded. She didn't say anything else, just slipped away to return to the couch. I thought about the faces that the sleepover kids had mentioned. That image had been much worse to me, but maybe the thing appeared as something different to everyone and at different times. A man-shaped shadow in the hall, a cloud of white smoke, faces in the dark. Whatever it was, it knew us, and it was still watching. Dad worked off until I was 16. Pipe fitting had taken him across the south, but it came to an end after a job in Galveston. One weekend he came home quieter than usual, thinner too, and one night while nursing what he thought was just the worst stomachache of his life, Mum rushed him to the ER. His appendix had ruptured 3 days earlier. By the time doctors figured it out, the damage had been done. They told us to buy a casket. For weeks, he drifted in and out of a haze, tangled in tubes, his body fighting the infection while the morphine and antibiotics kept him straddling a fragile line. I remember sitting by his hospital bed, watching the sweat bead on his brow, listening to him talk to people who weren't there. Once, he called out for his mother, voice soft and frightened like a small child. That's what stuck with me the most, how small he sounded, while he hovered in that place between worlds. I stayed with his sister. My days were a blur of finals that I failed and classes I barely absorbed. At night, I crashed on my aunt's stiff couch. What I remember most is how well I slept in those few weeks, and how much I hated myself for it. I always slept better away from home. Dad pulled through, somehow. Against the odds, he came back to us. But something had changed in him and in all of us. We didn't. Know then that this would just be the first step toward what would eventually take him. That threshold hadn't been crossed yet, not for many years to come. I wish I could say that that was the only scare with my father, but misfortune would come again and again. When I was a senior in high school, the cancer came back. It had first appeared when I was in 8th grade cells, blooming like rot in the lining of his bladder. This time, it was much worse. The chemo was brutal, and Dad had to undergo a radioactive wash. I still remember the way he cleaned the toilet afterward with spray bleach, arms trembling, trying to scrub something he couldn't even see. I'm not sure how much good it did, but he tried. By the time I had reached my last semester, the cancer had been beaten back again, but it had cost my father. It had aged him, hollowed him out. With the missed income and my father's medical bills, we were struggling. Finances frayed. I helped in whatever small ways I could, paid for my own food, my phone, all the extras, prom, senior gear, little things that added up. I covered it all with my part-time job and told myself I didn't mind. Things did start to get better after I walked that stage. The house felt lighter. The thing, whatever it was, seemed farther away. Not gone, never gone, but distant, like a storm that had rolled past. Its presence changed, less constant, less suffocating. It began to come and go like the seasons, with no pattern I could make sense of. When it was at the house, I knew it immediately. I'd feel it in the walls, in the static hum of the air, in the way shadows stretched just a little too far at dusk. Sometimes I could sense it pacing in the yard or walking the gravel driveway, keeping just outside the windows, watching, waiting. But when it was gone, it was truly gone. No footsteps, no flickering lights, just absence. Maybe it had found someone else to haunt. Maybe it needed to feed. I didn't ask questions. You learn not to after a while. A week after graduation, I met someone. Older, confident, I fell. Harder than I expected to. By the end of the year, we were engaged, and I was gone from the house. Moved out, moved on. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The thing didn't follow. Not at first. Those early years away were quiet, peaceful even. I could breathe without dread pooling in my lungs, sleep without bracing for creaking footsteps or sudden door slams. I thought I had escaped, but the thing was never just part of the house. Its reach was longer than I understood. Its power wasn't gone, only dormant, and when the time came it would call me back, because no matter how far I ran, I had always belonged to it, and it had been waiting. End of part 1. I will continue when I've recovered mentally from this recount. Story 1 ends here, now. Let's begin story 2. My friend showed me a new dating app for lonely people. There are some very strange rules in terms and conditions. I don't get it. I swirled my straw around in my iced pecan latte. Not the manliest drink choice, but Amaya had turned me onto them, and now I couldn't go back to whatever I had ordered before. I would never be the same. Yeah, Josh, Amaya chimed in, leaning back in her chair almost precariously, the front legs tilting off the ground. Me neither. It looks like Grindr. I snorted. It does kind of look like Grindr. How would you even know that, Cooper? I mean, ... I just ... I've seen what Grindr looks like. Have you never seen what Grindr looks like? My head whipped between them, searching for understanding in Josh's face and sympathy in Amaya's. I only found laughter. I crossed my arms and sulked. Guys, I know it's weird, Josh finally continued. He pinched his baseball cap by the bill and spun it around so it was backwards, leaning forward and holding out his phone for us to look at. Doing that was almost a nervous tic for him. It had to be 50 times a day that he rotated his hat like that when he was wearing one, just to rotate it back again. Sometimes I joked that he was going to make his hair curly like that. I don't even know who made this. Jackson said they found it on the dark web or something. Your cousin, Jackson. You're not really falling for that, are you? Amaya smirked at him, leaning on her elbows and chewing on her straw. He's definitely messing with you. He just glared at her and kept going. Some people think it's like promotion for a movie or something. Some people think the people on here are dead. Dead, like ghosts or something. He shrugged loosely, his face blank. No, there's just a lot of theories. They could also just be bots or something. So what's the point of using this? I chimed in, slurping loudly at the last hints of liquid in my cup. I got a couple dirty looks from some old ladies at the table next to us, and I smiled apologetically. You're just making it sound sketchy. Josh grinned, coming alive. He rotated his hat again and leaned in closer, like he was going to tell us a juicy secret. Amaya and I glanced at each other. People are finding love, apparently, he whispered up, like ... on the app, with the ghosts/bots. He shook his head. No, not exactly. I think the point of the app is that it figures out your type or something, and then you just find someone exactly like that. They're drawn to you or something. So, now this is some tarot card universe soulmate bullshit. Amaya always joked like this, but I could tell she was getting legitimately a little frustrated with him. I didn't blame her. Her emotions had been all over the place lately, since she and Sean broke up. I felt guilty for feeling a little. Relieved they finally ended it, considering it meant she had more time to hang out with us, because I knew she was having a horrible time with it. They had been together for 2 years. Things like that were a big deal. I, on the other hand, hadn't had a girlfriend in years. I hadn't even been on a date in longer than I wanted to admit, and even if I could get a date, I didn't think I'd know what to do with the opportunity. I thought college would be a constant party where I was meeting girls left and right, but so far I had been sorely mistaken. I couldn't lie, what Josh was saying sounded appealing in theory. If it was real, that was, which it wasn't. Listen, Josh said, offering her a crooked smile. I know it sounds fucking insane. It definitely is. Insane. I haven't even gotten to the weirdest part yet. What's the weirdest part then, Josh? She brushed some dark brown curls away from her eyes, scowling at her own iced latte. Spit it out. Check this out. He held out his phone again, and Amaya and I both leaned in to look. It was the same screen he'd shown us before, the one that looked a little bit like Grindr with a black background, and the only thing on the page were a list of open chats. He tapped on a little question mark in the top right corner, and that was when the terms and conditions popped up. Terms and conditions. 1. If someone messages you that you would like to speak with, you must reply within 10 minutes of receiving the message. 2. If you do not wish to speak to someone, you must repeat this phrase word for word. Thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you good luck with finding what you want. 3. If you wish to stop speaking to someone, repeat the phrase above. 4. If someone continues messaging you after you have sent the phrase above, get to high ground, lock all doors and windows, then contact customer support immediately. Delete the app. Do not re-download the app. 5. Do not message anyone between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. 6. Always say good night before you go to sleep. 7. Always say good morning as soon as you wake up. 8. Always be polite. Point 9. Do not send more than one message at a time. Point 10. Do not offer them anything to eat. 11. Do not agree to meet up with anyone on the app. Do not tell them where you are, even if they say that they already know. Do not invite them into your home. 12. If they are near your home, get to high ground, lock all doors and windows, and contact customer support immediately. Delete the app. Do not re-download the app. 13. Do not let them trick you, they will try. 14. We are not responsible for any negative consequences of using the app. Amaya and I just stared at the page for a long time, both of our eyes skimming over the words once, twice, 3 times. Finally, Amaya leaned back, rubbing at her face with the palms of her hands. This has to be a joke. Josh shrugged, setting his phone down. It's crazy, I know. Did you agree to all of that? I asked him. I felt a little uneasy, my stomach churning. The pecan latte wasn't sitting well anymore. Have you been using this? He shrugged again, now looking a little bit embarrassed. Listen, I know it sounds insane, but it's just for fun. I just want to see if it's real. Jackson met this girl like a week after using the app for the first time, and I met her, and she's really normal and nice. I find that hard to believe. Amaya's face was red, and she kept nervously tucking her hair behind her ears. Look, if you're messing with me, Like, if you're both in on this. This is a really shitty prank to pull on me right now. No. Both Josh and I cried out at the same time, getting a couple more weird looks. No, Amaya, it's not a prank, Josh finished. I promise. It's just something weird I found, and I wanted to tell you guys about it. Whatever, she huffed, pushing to her feet and slinging her bag over her shoulder. Just ... whatever. I don't feel good. I'll talk to you guys later, Amaya. I trailed off as she slammed her half-empty coffee cup into the trash and briskly strode toward the door. Josh and I shared a look. Dude, I swear I wasn't trying to mess with her, he said after a while, searching my face to gauge my belief in him. I nodded, wiping my sweaty palms off on my jeans. I know, it's okay. She just ... isn't doing well right now. I hesitated for a long moment, chewing on my bottom lip, before I spoke again. ... Jackson really met someone. I downloaded the app that night. I wasn't proud of it, but my curiosity became stronger than my uneasiness, and as embarrassing as it was to admit, I was getting desperate. I just wanted someone. I wanted to meet someone nice and pretty that I could go places with, and I wasn't having luck anywhere else. I considered it a win-win. If this app was just some bullshit prank, then we could get a good laugh out of it. And if it wasn't, that meant it was real. Josh had sent the link to our group chat with Amaya, and she immediately responded by reacting to the message with a thumbs down. That meant that, even if she was still a little peeved, at the very least, she wasn't upset anymore. It was a good sign. I pressed on the link and then agreed to download, crossing my fingers and praying for no horrible virus. The app really was incredibly bare bones. Nothing but a messaging screen, which was empty so far in my case. There wasn't anything else to look at other than the terms and conditions, which I read again. No one to swipe on, no bios to read, nothing. I was brushing my teeth when I got my first message. My phone buzzed, and I nearly choked on my toothpaste when I read the notification. Noel, hello handsome. For some reason, the smiley emoticon unnerved me. I checked the time, 11:30 p.m., so I was fine on that rule. I pressed on the message, and her profile popped up. There was no bio, just a name and a picture to look at. I studied it closely, my eyebrows cinching together. The picture was of a girl looking definitely somewhere close to my age. She had shoulder-length curly dark hair and dark skin, and she was posing in a yellow field, wearing a flowery dress. It looked normal to me at first, but the closer I looked, the more off it felt. Her smile looked stiff, almost like it was painted on, and something about her eyes wasn't quite right. Her pupils looked strange, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly how. Something about that picture filled me with a sense of dread that I couldn't fully place either. I panicked, and I checked the terms and conditions again before composing my message before the 10 minutes could pass, just in case. Cooper, thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you luck in finding what you want. Waited. 3 little typing bubbles popped up, and then they disappeared. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I sighed in relief and shut my phone off. I woke up to 2 more messages from other women. One was named Alyssa, and one was named Jody. My heart began to race. They had messaged during the night, so it had been 10 minutes before I replied, right. The words scrawled across the backs of my eyes like subtitles. You must reply within 10 minutes of receiving the message. Had I broken that rule? But then again, I wasn't supposed to message back at night, so surely it didn't count, ... I typed my responses, not bothering to look too closely at their profiles, yet not wanting to psych myself out. Alyssa, hi. Cooper, hi, good morning. Jody, hello, how are you today? Cooper, hello, good morning. I'm doing well, how are you? I tried to match their energy. I made sure to be polite, and I also made sure to say good morning. I couldn't get my heart rate to slow down while I got ready for work, and I couldn't get over the dread I had felt when I thought I might have broken the rule. I knew it probably wasn't real, but what if it was? What would happen to me if I didn't follow the terms and conditions? At work, I got in trouble more than once for checking my phone between waiting tables. I couldn't help it, even if it was a stupid joke. I didn't want to find out. I only got one message from someone new, someone named Sunny, and I caught it after 8 minutes had already passed since it was sent. I was anxious and restless all day, all the way until it was nearly midnight, when I could finally relax a little. The other girls had messaged me a couple of times throughout the day, and I had replied politely, asking them questions about things they liked to do and places they liked to go. Everything really seemed fairly average, besides the very slight hint of stiffness in the way they talked, and the strange qualities about all of their profile pictures. Maybe they really were just well-trained bots. The thought made me feel a little better. They probably weren't even real. The only thing out of the ordinary was one message from Alyssa. Alyssa, would you want to take me out to dinner some night this week? Get something to eat. Of course, in normal circumstances, this wouldn't have been a strange thing to say at all, but I remembered it at the last second. Do not offer them anything to eat. I told her I was extra busy that week, and I just wanted to get to know her first. She had typed for a long time before responding with, okay. Before it could get to midnight, I sent my goodnights and let out a long, shaky breath. I called Josh. Hey man, how's it going? He sounded out of breath. He must have been on his nightly run. I had tried telling him it was crazy to go on runs in the middle of the night, and so had Amaya, but he didn't listen. He was a white, straight, mostly muscular man. He had nothing to be scared of. He was invincible. This app is stressful, dude. I lay back in my bed, closing my eyes. It's taking a lot out of me. I heard Josh laugh on the other end, slightly choppy and still breathless. Don't take it too seriously, like I was saying. It could definitely just be some movie promotion or something. Also, you get used to it. I have, yeah, ... I trailed off. Have you talked to Amaya a little? Why? I'm just worried about her. She's been so out of it lately. Yeah, ... We should. Do something for her, man. Like, plan something. I couldn't help but smile. The three of us had been inseparable since freshman orientation, when we had been put in a group. I had thought it wouldn't last, that it would just be a case of freshman friend group, but it had. I felt lucky to have found both of them in such a big school, in such a big area. Yeah, we should. Let's hang out tomorrow. Sure thing. I went to bed that night feeling a little bit better and a little less anxious. I woke up to tons of messages, a couple of new ones, but mostly pages of ones from the girls I had already spoken to. Alyssa, Cooperlissa, don't go to bed. Talk to me, Cooperlissa. I miss you, Alyssa. Can I come over? Alyssa, I'm moving soon. Could you help me move? Alyssa, you could make me dinner, Alyssa. Cooper, wake up, Alyssa. I'm all alone, Alyssa, and I'm cold, Alyssa. It's so cold I shivered. I didn't even bother reading through the other messages. Just responded with a good morning and apologized for not responding the night before. I wasn't sure this app was for me. The next few days went by without much of a hitch. The girls on the app were creepy, but they seemed harmless, and I was careful to follow all of the rules. I kept telling myself that even if these girls freaked me out, they weren't even the ones I would end up with. If this app worked, I would meet someone who was perfect for me very, very soon, and then I could delete it and forget about it forever. I would give it another week or so. Then I was going to give up. That was until Josh came into my job on a Wednesday. I saw him waiting outside the break room, his face pointed down, wringing his hands anxiously. The first thing I noticed was that he had no hat on. The second thing was that he was crying. What's wrong? I asked him, frowning and looking him over. Is everything okay, dude? He shook his head, finally looking up and meeting my eyes. I saw horror in them and some other emotion that I hadn't seen from him, maybe ever. Amaya is missing. Cooper, she's gone. One thought struck me all at once. The first stupid thought I had. Did she download it too? Everything after that felt like a huge grey blur. My manager gave me the day off work, and I went with Josh, following him to the police station. I sat in their grey room. I answered their questions. I tried not to cry when they told me that her roommate had reported her missing, after she hadn't seen her for over 24 hours. I tried not to panic when they told me her roommate also found the window broken that morning and some blood staining the carpet. But there was no body down on the ground, no other traces of anything. I felt so guilty. I should have texted her more. I should have been calling and checking in on her. I had just been so distracted by work and by the stupid app. The only thing keeping us from ruling it a suicide is the lack of a body, a female cop told me, clearly trying to be gentle. She placed a hand on my arm. Her roommate tells us she was going through a breakup. I felt myself fill with painful, searing rage. Amaya wouldn't do that. I looked the cop in the eyes, trying to make the eye contact burn. I promise. I could tell she didn't believe me. I stayed over at Josh's place. We both shuffled around like zombies, basically communicating only through either grunts of acknowledgement or shaky, quiet conversations about any updates. There were none to talk about. I completely forgot about the app. I forgot about it until about a week after she disappeared. My phone had been buzzing non-stop the entire week, but most of the time I had it entirely shut off. Some of my messages had been from my family, Amaya's family, and our classmates and friends, and some had been from the stupid app, but I couldn't bring myself to reply to many of them at all. But then I got a notification that caught my eye. Amaya. Hi Coupette. Took me longer than I would like to admit to realize what I was looking at. At first I thought it was a text message, and my heart soared up into my throat. Then I realized it was the app. When I opened it up, I was bombarded with messages, both from new people and old ones. The old fear I'd felt about the app began to resurface, bubbling up like bile. Alyssa, Cooper, I'm coming. Over, Alyssa. I can come over. Now, Alyssa. I know where you are, Alyssa. Can I come over? Alyssa, answer me, Cooper. I'm going to come. Over, Jody. Meet me, Jody. Please meet me, Jody. Please meet me, Jody. Now. Jody, now. Jody, on Sunny. Sealed, I ignored all of them, despite the horrible, sick feeling in my gut. I opened the one from Amaya. I looked at her profile picture. It was her. It was a picture of her I had never seen before. It was dark outside and taken with flash. Her hair was down, falling around her face in the way that she couldn't stand. Her chin tilted a little too. The side. She was smiling in the way that first girl was. Wrong. Stiff and strange and wrong. That wasn't her smile, and those weren't her eyes. They were far too dull, and very slightly pointing in different directions. Cooper, Amaya. Cooper, is that really you? Cooper, are you okay? The three bubbles popped up, then disappeared, then popped. Up again, I stood up, beginning to pace. Should I call Josh? Should I call the police? Was this some sort of sick joke? Finally, my phone buzzed. Amaya, I am near your home, I started to cry. I couldn't help it. I wanted to throw my phone. I wanted to break it. Cooper, where are you? What happened to you? Amaya 10 feet high stared at the message. I felt like my vision was going out. Cooper, 10 feet from where Maya. It's cold here, I swallowed hard. It felt like swallowing rocks. Cooper, thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you luck in finding what you want, Amaya. 6 feet Amaya, cold Amaya, and Dark Eye knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to lock the doors and the windows, get to high ground, and call customer support, but I couldn't. All I could do was stare at my phone, at her messages, frozen like a deer in headlights, and the headlights were coming so fast I couldn't see or breathe or think. She was typing again. As my phone buzzed, my blood ran completely cold. It was 1:56 a.m. No one was there, no one but me and whatever it was. I wasn't even sure if I could stop shaking enough to call the police, and I definitely couldn't hide, not then, and I had broken nearly all of the rules. Amaya, let me in. I have to show you where it took me. I finally managed to hide. I'm hiding now, in my attic. I can hear it down there, dragging itself from room to room. My phone is going to die and none of my calls will go through, but I had to write this down. I had to tell someone, Josh, if you read this, I hope you're okay. I hope you followed the rules. I don't know where Amaya is. But that's not Amaya. And if you see me again, I'm not sure it'll be me either. I'm sorry, it's typing again. I've broken one last rule. I didn't delete. The app, wish me luck. Story 2 ends here. Now, we drift into story 3. Someone is sending me videos of myself, and I don't remember them happening. It started with a link. I thought it was a scam at first. It was a text message from a hidden number. I don't know why I clicked on it. Maybe it was just curiosity. Things that are forbidden hold their own kind of appeal, like the urge to jump off a cliff when you look over the edge. When I held my thumb over the blue words, the ape urge to leap was stronger than the little common sense I had in my teenage brain. I took the plunge. After clicking, I was redirected to a private web page with a video. I felt my shoulders tense. As I pushed play, I honestly expected some weird sex thing, but it wasn't that. It was me in the video. I was walking home from school. It was dark, and I could really only make out the shadow of myself. Our street didn't have a lot of lights. I had gotten home late that day because of band practice. I could see my trumpet case, swinging as I walked along my neighbor's fence. I saw myself running my hand along the smooth plastic boards and then dropping my arm to feel the tall grass that grew at its base. It was like watching a car accident. I was terrified, but I couldn't look away. The video was 5 minutes long. The camera kept on me all the way to my house and up my front porch. I saw myself open the door. Then the footage cut. I showed my parents. They called the police and it became a big scandal in our neighborhood. Everyone was on the lookout for the pervert stalker who filmed kids walking home. At one point, we had a chaperone system. No teenager was allowed outside after dark without a suitable adult present. It was annoying to everyone, including me. High school was hard enough, but now I was the kid who made everyone need a babysitter for 3 months. Was not flavor of the week with anyone at school. They never caught the person who made the video. After a few months of vigilance, they stopped keeping such a close eye on everyone. A year passed. The memory of the video started to fade from everyone's minds, even mine. Then, on the anniversary of me getting the first video, I got another link. It was déjà vu. I was a senior and had just gotten home from a graduation party. I was tired, but when I got the text, I was immediately awake. I clicked on the link faster than I should have. The video was of me at the party. It was taken from behind, so you couldn't see my face, but I recognized my shirt. It had the decal for a jazz competition I had competed in. About a minute in, I saw my shoulders shudder and me bend forward. I was laughing. I remembered that moment. My friend had told me a funny story about catching his older brother making out with his girlfriend while they were watching Sophie's Choice. I wasn't laughing about it anymore. The video went on for a bit longer. Whoever was filming got a bit closer when the video ended. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't want a repeat of what happened last time. I tried asking my friends who had made the video. I was hoping it was just someone pulling a prank on me. No one admitted to doing it. I tried to go on with my life, but worrying about this on my own was almost worse than just fessing up and having my whole school hate me for it. Almost for 2 whole weeks. I slept with a baseball bat in my bed and felt my heart race each time I felt my phone buzz. I never walked home alone, always making sure to have a friend or 2 around me. If they thought it was weird, they didn't say anything. Time passed. No more videos came. I started to forget again. I graduated, enrolled in college, and began living on my own. I had concluded that the video was a practical joke from my friends. That decision had dulled my anxiety and allowed me to actually live my life. More time passed, and I was so focused on school, I had no time to think about the videos. That was the past, and it was done. But then the past came back. When I was studying late one night at the library, I got another anonymous text message. It was another video. I told myself this couldn't be the same person. I wasn't even living in the same state anymore. But that same curiosity was there, that same lack of common sense. My thumb trembled with a mixture of fear and anticipation. As I clicked the link, the video started. It was me, in the library, studying. Whoever took the video included the wall clock behind me. I had turned to confirm what time it was. The video had been shot 5 minutes ago. I had been alone for the past hour. Who could have shot the video? I searched the area where I was studying from top to bottom. No one was there. I went over the room again, then again. 3 more times in total. Nothing. I looked for secret cameras, hidden phones. I almost considered taking out all the books from the bookshelves in case they had hidden their recording equipment there. After a frantic hour, I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. This was what they wanted. They wanted to get a rise out of me. Wasn't that the point? I couldn't give them the satisfaction. I was going to ignore this. If I didn't click on the videos, they'd get bored and move on to another person. They didn't move on. I started getting videos every month. I had self-control at first, but my stupid curiosity would inevitably lead to me clicking on the link after it had sat in my inbox for a week or 2. I tried blocking the number, but it never seemed to work. More videos kept coming. As more videos were sent to me, I realized just how odd they actually were. They were never incriminatory footage, never looking in my window or peeking in on me in the bathroom like you would expect from a stalker. It was just videos of me in public places, shots of me walking to class or back to my apartment. It made the videos feel less dangerous. After a while, the videos didn't make me feel as uneasy as before. Nothing had happened, and most of the videos had been shot during the day. It stopped feeling like stalking, to be honest. The videos started to be interesting to me. I had never been popular or someone who was sought after. I was pretty average. The attention was kind of flattering. Someone was so obsessed with me, they felt the need to take time out of their day and film me. The videos made me feel like a celebrity, in a twisted sort of way. Even with all these complicated feelings, I got better at saying no. I even made it a full 2 weeks without looking at any of the links I was sent. Then, whoever was sending the videos began upping the ante. I started getting videos every 2 weeks. Again, nothing perverted, just the same candid public shots. I resisted more, and the frequency increased again. Asterisk videos arrived every week, like clockwork, then every half week, then every day, then multiple times a day. There were so many videos, and even though I tried not to, I watched them all. Somewhere along the line, it became an obsession. I had to watch those videos. I had to see what whoever was sending them saw. I wasn't even hesitating when the links came to me. I just clicked. On them, it began to feel normal to get them. The videos became almost helpful. I had always been a little self-conscious, always worrying about what other people thought of me. With the videos, I could finally see what other people saw. I didn't like what the videos showed me. I started to change things. I changed how I swung my arms when I walked, because in one video I thought it looked stupid. I changed the depth of my voice because in another video I thought my voice sounded high and nasally. I stopped wearing graphic t-shirts because in another video I could see some girls laughing at me. I began to study the videos, watch them multiple times. I watched them so much, I began to dream of myself in the third person. There was one video I received of a conversation I had with a friend. I watched it 12 times just to gauge my friend's reaction to a joke. I wanted to judge if it was a real laugh or just a pity laugh. After that video, the uploaders started recording more of my conversations. It was like they knew I needed more. It was like scrolling on social media, except every post, every video was for me. It was all for my betterment, my perfecting. I started to feel grateful to the uploader. I was becoming the person who I always wanted to be. Then the first weird video came. I received the link at lunchtime. I was at Taco Bell eating a chalupa. My phone buzzed. I saw the link and clicked on it without hesitation. I was excited for the new upload. The excitement turned to confusion. It took me a moment to understand what I was seeing. Normally, the videos appeared only moments after they had been filmed. It was good that way. I could immediately critique my actions. This video wasn't filmed at lunchtime. It had been filmed at night. Video-me was looking away from the camera. I stood in front of an empty canal, staring off into the distance. No one was around me. The only illumination came from an orange street lamp off in the distance. There were 15 seconds of me just staring. Then the video cut. It took me a moment to realize why it frightened me so much. I didn't remember being there last night. I didn't remember being there any night. I searched my brain. Yesterday, I had been at home in the evening. Same with the day previous. Every night that week, I hadn't left my apartment from the hours of 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. The next day, I had been busy rewatching my videos. I watched it again. Maybe this was months ago. Maybe I had taken a midnight walk and I hadn't remembered it. I knew I was lying to myself. I never went on midnight walks. I loved my sleep. I was the kind of person who went to bed early and slept late. It unsettled me, but an hour later, another video came. This one was normal. Me, in public, eating lunch. I relaxed. I wrote the weird video off a one-time thing. I forgot all about it and started watching my new video to figure out how to chew like a cool person. Over the next few weeks, more weird videos showed up in my inbox. These uploads always showed me in out-of-place locations at night. I didn't recognize any of them. At first it was just train tracks, dark roads, forested areas. Then I started showing up in abandoned buildings and in people's backyards. I never remembered doing any of those things. The honeymoon phase was over. The videos were becoming frightening again. It was Russian roulette every time I clicked on the link. Would it be one I remembered or one I didn't? But I kept clicking. I had to have those videos. I tried to solve the situation as best I could. I filmed myself at night to see if I was sleepwalking. I pored over hours of footage, but I never saw myself leave my apartment. My grades started slipping. I felt tired all the time. I got more and more weird videos of me being out and about at night eventually. It became a 50-50 shot each time I clicked the link, whether the video would be one that I remembered or one that I didn't. I kept pulling the trigger. I couldn't stop. I thought about telling people, but I was afraid. What would they think? How do you even begin to explain something like this? And how was I going to explain why I had let it go so long? I tried to justify the strange videos. Nothing wrong was happening, nothing illegal or bad. It was just videos of me at night. I told myself I was being paranoid about the whole thing. It wasn't hurting me. It wasn't hurting anybody. That made it okay, right? Then the last upload. It was at night. I was lying in bed, trying to read a book for one of the many classes I was failing. The notification came onto my screen, and I felt a sudden drop in my stomach. I had never gotten one so late before, not since the first video so many years ago. It looked like every other text in the chain, but this one was strangely ominous. Something about it was different, off. I hovered over the link for a moment longer than usual. A moment passed. I pressed down with my thumb. I was redirected to the private page. I saw the new video. It was an hour long. I hesitated for a moment, then pressed the play button. The video began with me standing in front of a house with its porch lights out. It was on a dark street in a suburban neighborhood. It took a moment, and then I recognized where I was. It was my parents' house, on the video. I was still for a long time, just looking. Then I walked towards the porch. It was surreal watching it. I hadn't been home in months. Video me reached under the doormat and pulled out the spare key. He unlocked the front door and walked inside. He closed the door behind him, throwing the room into darkness. His shadowy form went into the kitchen and started to search the cupboards. I couldn't tell what he was looking for. He was quiet and thorough, methodical. He stopped searching, put some items I couldn't see in his pockets, and then went. Upstairs, he skipped the creaky steps I knew to avoid when I was a teenager. My mouth went numb. He stopped outside my parents' room. He silently opened their door and looked inside. On the video, I saw my parents sleeping. The camera zoomed in on them for a moment. Video me stared at them for a long time. I pleaded silently for them to wake up. They continued to sleep. Video me left my parents and went downstairs, avoiding the creaky step again. He entered the garage and began rummaging around my dad's tool bench. He pulled out a full gas can and set it on the bench. From his pocket, he took a cup and some paper towels. The things he took from the kitchen. He filled the cup with gas. My stomach dropped as I saw Vidami soak some paper towels in the gas-filled cup and shove them into my family car's gas tank. He poured a line of gas from the car to the living room. He then poured separate lines to the kitchen, up the stairs, to my room. Still pouring, he made another line to my parents' room. Then he used the half-filled cup to douse my parents' door in gas. He went downstairs again, still pouring. He made a line right out the front door, making sure to douse the welcome mat. He left the gas in the entry hallway and exited the house. I watched Vidami fumble with something in his pocket. I saw the spark and the match light up. For a moment, he stared at the house, then tossed the small flame onto the puddle of gas forming around the front door. It only took a few minutes. Everything was on fire. The whole house burned bright, and smoke alarms began to scream out like tortured children. It might have just been my imagination, but I thought I heard my parents pleading over the roar of the flames, for someone to save them. The house burned for the rest of the video. No one escaped. Video me watched the whole thing unfold. In the video, I heard sirens in the distance. Then the footage cut. For a long time, I stared at the black ending screen. I tried to tell myself it was fake, to convince myself that it wasn't. Me in the video, I would never hurt my parents. I would never burn down their home with them inside. But it looked so real. There was one comment underneath the video. There had never been comments before I'd read it. It was one sentence. "Thank you, my friend. I got that link 3 hours ago. I'm hiding in the woods now. I won't say where because I don't want anyone to find me. Everyone has been trying to reach me, my old friends, my close relatives. It wasn't a hoax. My parents' house really burned down. No one survived. It's my fault. I don't know how, but I was the one who did this. I know it. I kept watching the videos. If I hadn't, none of this would have happened. But the worst part is, I know if I got another link, I would only hesitate a little before clicking, even. Now when I close my eyes, I can see the videos swirling around in my brain. After images of me in the third person, walking, talking, burning. Don't worry about finding my body. No one will discover me until I'm just a pile of bones. I hope that even then they don't try to identify me. There's a security that comes in anonymity. I won't be remembered as the person that burned their parents to death. I'll be some strange mystery, something unconnected and free. That's really all I want now, to be unobserved. If you get a link from an unknown number, don't risk it. You might like it too much. Story 3 ends here, now. Listen closely to story 4. I picked up the worst hitchhiker ever. Every job has 2 sets of rules. The first set can usually be figured out with a bit of common sense. And when that fails, you can ask Google or some shit. But the second set, well, those rules are special. You have to earn the right to hear them. There is no easy way around that. You have to put in your time like the rest of us, and eventually one of your seniors will let you in on the hidden knowledge. Let me ask you something though. Would you still follow the rules if nothing ever happened when you broke them? Would you ever be tempted to see why they exist in the first place? I have been a trucker for nearly 30 years. In that span, I have damn near broke every secret rule I was told. I don't know why. I guess I never cared much for procedure, or rules, or anything like that. Just give me a 2-liter of Coke Zero, my truck, and the open road. Anything more than that is just extra bullshit I don't get paid enough to deal with, so yeah. I did eat jerky every single time I drove down Road 58. No, I never stopped to piss on the elder tree on my way to Montana. And you're damn right. I don't toss a perfectly good pack of cigs out the window at the end of every haul. As it turns out though, the rules do exist for a reason. I was a fool for ever thinking otherwise. It all started with someone banging on my truck door in the early morning. I had gotten absolutely plastered the night before, and it was a miracle they were able to wake me up. I shouted something back, can't remember what. Then I laid there and considered whether I was lonely enough tonight to tousle with some reptiles. I stumbled out of bed and pushed the door open. The air was cool against my bare chest. My vision was still a bit blurry, but I did manage to say, "Listen here, Lizzie, I only got 40. Wasn't Lizzie on the lot. Instead, there stood a fella. That was a first. He was tall and lanky, bony, too. Like he lacked muscle completely and was just skin pulled tightly over bone. Reminded me a tad of those European models I've seen on the cover of gas station magazines. He wore one of them bowler hats, and altogether was a bit too clean to be any sort of honest man. In his hand he carried a briefcase of fine, glossy leather. Or hell no. Listen, fella, I know times are a-changing, and trust me, I support that. But this cowboy prefers roast beef over sausage, if you catch my drift." The man chuckled, then lifted his hat. His hair was the color of good wheat beneath the midday sun. Wild too. Behind gold spectacles he had bright blue eyes. calculating, sunken eyes. I figured he was either a cop or one of those car salesmen that gets all giddy at the prospect of fucking a first time. Buy her over. Sorry for waking you, friend. I tried the other semi-trucks before heading over here, but no one answered. My name is Samuel, and I am in a bit of a pickle. I had a, how would you say, falling out with my business partner. We were on a trip to California to conduct some research for our firm. I must say that, unfortunately, our partnership is now dissolved, but I still need to get to California. Would you happen to be on your way there? There were several other truckers parked at the rest stop, sticklers for the rules to be sure. I chuckled, which brought a concerned look to Samuel's face. I reckon you scared the daylights out of those poor men. In our trade there is a rule about not opening the door between the hours of 4 and 6 in the morning in this here lot. Is this a dangerous area? I thought things looked reasonably safe. Ever had the soul drained out of you by a devil? I asked solemnly. Samuel stared at me in shock. I laughed at his unblinking gaze. Oh, you're joking with me, he said. Well, it's a real issue. I suspect that rule was made up to keep these fellas safe from themselves, I said solemnly. I took Samuel's measure in that moment. He seemed like he took himself a bit too seriously, and I definitely wasn't a fan of the fact that he hadn't. Blinked once since I first saw him, but I didn't see him as much of a threat. Not then. To answer your question, yeah. I am headed to California, I said after a long silence. What kind of business are you in? I am a lawyer. I mainly deal in contracts. It's my specialty, he said evenly. A lawyer? Well then why aren't you flying your pretty ass to LA in first class? Fly me? Certainly not. I have had the worst fear of heights ever since I suffered a particularly nasty fall. No, I am a creature of the road, friend. I pretended like I was deep in thought about whether I should bring I had helped people out before, but ever since a certain incident involving a man who was actually running from the law, hitching a ride with me, I have been more hesitant about giving people rides. I am prepared to offer you $1,000 for safe passage, $500 up front, and the rest once we arrive in California. Additionally, I will pay for your food and drink on the way there. Make it $1,500 and you have a deal. Now it was Samuel's turn to laugh. $1,500, but you need to take me to Los Angeles. I shook his well-manicured hand and resisted curling my lips at how soft it was. Sure, go ahead and use the restroom and get whatever you need from the gas station over that way. Tell them Mike sent ya. They'll take care of everything. We leave in 2 hours. Make sure you are ready. I went back into my truck and tried to sleep. Didn't work out too well. I had the worst nightmares. They kept forcing me awake every 15 minutes or so. Drenched in sweat, with my heart racing at what felt like 100 miles per hour, I decided to get ready, hoping that routine would take my mind elsewhere. Outside, Samuel was staring at something. On the ground, clouds of smoke gathered above his head and dissipated. He turned and looked directly at me. I snorted, then finished the last of a lukewarm energy drink from the other day. She eat, I said, after joining several baby birds, still blue-pink, lay in a pile. Indeed, said Samuel. What a cruel world. I scratched at my beard. City boys, man. Nothing cruel here, I reckon. Just a fact of life. He regarded me coolly, hands clasped behind his back. You don't believe in evil? Nah, I mean it sucks to see a little critter die before it ever gets to fly. But all that talk about good and evil, well, I figure we made it up. Moralized nature, to give us some sort of control or power over it. I doubt these birdies were cursing their fate. They felt some cold and some hunger, and then, welp, that was it. Samuel didn't reply. He took another pull on his cigarette. Something in me really didn't like the way he looked at those birds. We got into the truck. Samuel had gotten me a bottle of Coke Zero and some Doritos. I thanked him, though he didn't answer. His eyes were distant and cold. As we pulled out from the lot, I waved at another trucker who was barely coming out of his vehicle. Poor guy looked terrified. It was either his first time hauling, or he was coming down from something. My new companion didn't say much as we drove down the highway, just stared out the window. I felt him staring at me whenever he thought I wasn't looking though. Definitely an odd fella. You're probably wondering why the hell I allowed him to stay at that point, and the truth is, I was lonely. It's nice to have company beyond the radio on these longer hauls. So I didn't press him on the matter. I pointed out different sights and shared a bit about myself. He didn't do the same. Then, about a few hours into the drive, he asked, "Do you like being alive?" Asterisk, asterisk, I gave him a look. The fuck kind of question was that? Sure, buddy, I do. Football, fajitas, and fucking. In that order too. Those are what make life worth living for me. What about you? I'm guessing either those nature documentaries where the zebras get ate by lions or leaked footage from battlefields. I laughed. In his face. Is that what makes you tick? Samuel pursed his full lips. I enjoy reading IRS tax publications. I also enjoy hunting, but most of my time is spent working. Christ almighty. Well, that's interesting. So why are you headed over to Los Angeles? What big business are you looking to break into over there? Have you been watching the news? Not really, I said. Sam smiled. Can I confess something to you? Go for it. I asked whether you enjoyed your life because I am quite dissatisfied with my own. I shrugged. Well, that happens. That feeling won't last forever though. Nothing does. I think my life would be a whole lot better if nobody else existed. I could enjoy a land of silence, be at peace. Imagine, if you will, a world of infinite space, no obstructions, utter flatness. Sounds like you want a whole lot of nothing, I said. Yes, Samuel whispered. Nothing. I merged over into the middle lane and did my best to ignore him for the rest of the drive. He got more blatant with his staring, but I didn't. Give him the reaction he was looking for. You meet a lot of unsavory characters in this line of work. Comes with the territory. There are two kinds of people who seek solitude after all. Mystics and devils. Never forget the latter vastly outweigh the former. We stopped for the evening, then headed over to a diner. As we neared, a shaggy dog with a bloom of silver around his muzzle pattered over to me. Don't pet it. It's filthy, Samuel said. Go on and get us a table. You're scaring the dog, I replied. I heard the door open and slam shut behind me. I shook my head and proceeded to scratch behind the shaggy dog's ears. Then I fed him a bit of jerky from my pocket. Good luck out. There, old man. Yeah, I know you're capable. I meant no offense. But old guys like us need it, I told the dog. He licked my hand before trotting away. Samuel didn't look up from his menu. He only asked whether I had washed my hands. I ignored him. The lovely waitress came to our table a few minutes later, took our orders, and that was that. After she brought our food, Samuel leaned over and asked, "Are you ignoring me?" "Yeah, now shut the fuck up and eat your food." I saw the man bristle at that, but he stayed quiet. He stayed quiet and he stared. I excused myself and went over to the restroom. I decided to take my sweet time as it was going to be a long ride with that weirdo. Then, while I was finishing up, I heard a commotion outside. The waitress from earlier was crying and repeating over and over that she didn't know how Samuel's wallet ended up in her apron. Samuel stood there with his arms crossed, shaking his head. "I am sorry, sir. Truly. I don't want any trouble," said Jeb, the man who owned the diner. Samuel stepped closer and jabbed his finger into Jeb's chest. "That bitch stole my wallet. I had over $2,000 in there. That is a felony, sir. I want her fired and gone." Jeb looked at the waitress sheepishly. Her eyes were wild and she was tugging at her hair. "Jeb, please. I didn't do it, you know." "Me. Please, Jeb. I have kids to feed." "Then how did it get there, Paddy?" Jeb asked, "What's going on here?" I said, not able to stand it any longer. Samuel grinned. "I caught a criminal in the act. Who knows what else she's stolen?" Jeb threw his hands up into the air. Okay, Becky. I'm sorry, but we caught you red-handed. You're fired. Now get out of here before the kind lawyer here presses charges." He turned to Samuel, shoulders hunched. "Please, sir, we don't have a whole lot of money. You wouldn't get much out of suing us." These were simple folks Samuel was bullying. They didn't know anything about the law. "Let's get out." "Of here, Samuel," I grunted. He followed behind me so close, I felt his breath against my neck. Then, when we were outside and far enough away from the diner, he said, something that made me freeze in place. "And that is how you get a free meal." I slowly turned around. Samuel stood there tall and dark with the desert behind him. He was smiling so wide his face practically contorted. "The hell did you say?" I gasped, so angry I could hardly speak. "I slipped the wallet into her apron while she refilled your coffee," he said gleefully. Those blue eyes of his were glowing like embers. I felt a chill run down my spine. "She had kids to feed, man. You got her fired over $20. Are you out of your goddamn mind?" "Oh, Michael, you have no idea," he growled. There was something feral in the cast of his face now, something hungry. He took a step towards me. I clenched my fists and squared up to him. "You and I are done. Find a different way to California, you son of a bitch." "We had a deal," Samuel said. "Oh, really?" I raised an eyebrow, then spit at his feet. "I would have thought a fancy lawyer like you would have gotten that. Deal down in writing. So please, produce it." "Oh, you don't have it. Well, I suppose that doesn't matter since you broke the terms. You see, you were supposed to pay for my food and drink per our agreement. You went back on that the moment. You forced those poor folks back there to pay for our food." Samuel's lips peeled back and I saw row upon row of pointed teeth spinning in place within that wide mouth. "This is a bad idea. You don't got the wit you think." I laughed while waving him goodbye, but secretly I was terrified of that. Man, I knew what he was now. He watched me as I got into my truck. I felt him watching even after I was safely inside. I didn't know why until I found the surprise he left for me on my bed. I don't think I have screamed like that since I was a boy. I grabbed a towel, threw it over his sick gift, and drove away as fast as I could. I would like to say my encounter with Samuel ended there, but it didn't. I see him now every time I pass through a crossroads. He smiles and holds up his briefcase. As I drive past, I can't stop for too long anymore either because I can hear him knocking on the door at night, asking where the shaggy dog is. Then I hear him laughing, which turns into barking, exactly like that poor animal did. And all I can do at that moment is pray for someone to save me. All I can say is, if you're going to break the rules, make sure they are the right ones. Story 4 ends here, and now we enter the fog of Story 5. A dead man walks my neighborhood every night. No one else can see him. I was on the far side of my neighborhood when I saw him for the first time. The middle of winter, and yet he wore a t-shirt and shorts. That was the first thing I noticed. About him, we walked toward each other, me crossing the street as an SUV slowly approached. I was looking at the ground, but when he walked past me, I felt a surge of heat, like an oven door had just opened. With it came a fetid air like that of burnt plastic. I turned around in time to see him crossing the street. That's when I noticed the second thing. The SUV came to a rolling stop at the stop sign. I screamed out and threw my hands in the air as I ran toward them, but the car passed right through the man as if he wasn't there. He continued to walk with his eyes forward. It was only then, looking at him closely, that I noticed the third thing. He was translucent. Not obviously so, but enough that I could look through him and vaguely make out the dark shadow of a house. I watched him until he turned the corner. Then I ran home, looking over my shoulder every so often to make sure the ghost wasn't following me at the time. My life was purgatory. I was 22 and had just graduated college. I was living with my parents and hadn't found a real job yet. I worked about 20 hours a week at a local grocery store and spent the rest of my time applying for jobs. I had this constant urge to do something crazy, move to Hollywood and live out of my car while I worked on my screenplays. Maybe I could sell all my possessions and travel the country in a van. I wanted something new and exciting. I didn't care if the new and exciting was a bad new and exciting. I guess that's why I went back to the street where I first saw the ghost. He wasn't there the first few times I went, but I could always smell him, that pungently sour, burnt smell, sometimes more fresh than others. It became a routine. I felt like a paranormal investigator one Sunday evening, walking about 20 feet behind a couple pushing a baby in a stroller. There he was, walking towards us. Same t-shirt, same shorts. I stopped where I was and just watched. Neither he nor the family gave any indication that they saw each other. The ghost walked with its eyes resolutely forward. The mum and dad continued their conversation, and then the ghost walked through them. I found myself biting my thumb as he approached me. My heart was hammering so loud that I barely heard the next car driving by, but I was determined to hold my ground. If there was a chance to experience something new, I wanted to face it. There had to be a reason why only I could see him. The heat and smell consumed me as he walked by. I became incredibly dizzy. I saw stars dot, then he was walking past me. I followed. The walk didn't last much longer, less than 5 minutes. We turned a corner. He walked toward the first house on the right, then disappeared as he entered the front yard. I was stuck in place and breathing hard when a voice came from behind me. "You can see him too, can't you?" I turned around too, see a tall, handsome man, roughly my age. He was looking down at me and smiling like I'd done something surprisingly cute. A little kid who just solved a math problem she hadn't been taught in school yet. "Yes," I said. "Who is he?" "Your guess is as good as mine." "You followed him, didn't you?" I nodded. "That's how I found him too. He's always walking the same path, but he disappears right here. I think it's where he used to live. Why? I don't know." Like I said, I found him the same way. You want to get a cup of coffee? I was so taken aback that I laughed. He flinched as if I'd hit him. I'll take that as a no, he asked. Yes, I said, too sharply. I mean, no, you shouldn't take it as a no. Let's get a cup of coffee and you can tell me more about the ghost. I don't know anything else, but I can tell you more about me, and maybe you can tell me more about you. I'm not sure if I said yes because I liked his smile, or because I didn't want to give up the adventure. Either way, 15 minutes later, we had our drinks and were sitting down outside a local coffee shop. So, how often do you see ghosts? He asked. Not often, I said. I didn't want him to know that this was the first time. I wanted to seem cooler than I really was. Like we were both a part of this selective club. I've been seeing them since I was little, he said. Looking down at his drink, I learned that his old house was across the street from where we'd seen the ghost, but now he lived in his own apartment in the city. He just liked to watch the man sometimes. He said it was the only ghost he'd ever seen that never left. After that day, we started hanging out a few times a week. Sometimes we'd get coffee, other times it was dinner, a movie, or a walk. I can't say I ever liked him that much, at least not romantically. But there was a certain dependency that started not long after the first coffee date, to some degree. I felt close to him because of the power we shared. But he also had this anxious desperation. He hid it well, but I could tell that he was always holding his breath with me, or on the edge of his seat, silently begging me not to go. I felt bad. For him, most importantly, he was my key to the world's secrets. So when one day he asked me if I wanted to go back to his apartment, I said yes. Not because I felt that I had to, and not because I thought he would be mad if I said no, but because I wanted to be closer to him, not sex, although that wasn't something I was opposed to. I wanted to see where he lived, what he kept in his fridge, what he had on his walls, what his room smelled like, what kind of shampoo he used. I wanted to know him, and you can't know someone unless you know how they live when they're alone. So we went to his apartment. He had no welcome mat or decorations, just a TV, a couch, and some books stacked against the wall. No kitchen table, no recliner, no place to put our shoes. He showed me to his room, a bed, a desk, and a computer. You sure know how to live. Asterisk, asterisk, he laughed. When I was a kid, I spent all my time inside. I didn't get the chance to experience much. So, when I started living on my own, I decided I'd spend as much time outside as possible. It didn't make a lot of sense to me at first. I mean, was being outside inherently better than being inside? Over time, I've realized that what he really cared about was having a reason for everything he did. He never wanted to go to bed feeling like he wasted his day, and he didn't want to die feeling like he wasted his life. He didn't mind being home if he was home for a reason. To write because that's where his desk was. To sleep because that's where his bed was. But he never wanted to waste time. That's what was important. We sat down on the couch and talked for a while. I don't remember what about. What I do remember is the way his eyes softened and his lips parted slowly. How he lowered his chin in a way that made him look like a child. I remember, better than I remember anything else, how softly he asked me, "Will you please try to find me?" What? I want you to go outside, wait a few seconds, then come inside and find me. Something about the way he asked made me just do it. I wanted to make him happy. There was just something so sad about him. I gave him about 15 seconds. There weren't a lot of places to hide inside the apartment. but it took me a long time to find him because I was walking so slowly. I thought he was planning to jump out and scare me. I checked behind the couch, under the bed, behind the shower curtain. I opened the towel closet half joking, but found him curled into a ball under the shelf. He was rocking himself back and forth and crying. When I reached for him, he straightened his legs and scooted out. He stood up and I kissed him. It wasn't exactly how I expected our first time to go, but yes, that was it. For weeks after, almost every night, I'd search for him and we'd make love. I didn't particularly like the strange game of hide and seek, but I didn't hate it either, and it made him happy, so I did it. We were lying in his bed one night, no hiding and no seeking, my head on his chest, when he told me everything. He saw a ghost for the first time while he was playing in his backyard with his mum. Only, he didn't realize it was a ghost. He thought it was funny that the yellow dog kept walking back and forth from the big tree to their back door. When he perfectly described the dog, which had died before he was born, was buried under the tree, and that he had absolutely not seen. Any pictures of his mum brought him inside and prayed over him for hours. Later, when he saw a grey man in the house, she beat him so badly that he was kept out of school for a week for fear of teachers taking notice. She started drinking and her beatings became more and more frequent. Only, she was smarter about how she dished them out. She hit him in places where no one could see the evidence, his chest and his back. She thought she could beat the demons. Out of him, he started hiding every time his mum drank, or when he knew she'd be coming home late from the bar. She'd walk into the house screaming his name. Sometimes, if he hid really well, it would take her over an hour to find him. But she would never stop looking until she did. Even now, he said, part of me feels loved. She always looked for me so hard, like I mattered to her more than anything else in the world. She wanted to find me and beat me because she thought she could cure me. If she hated me, she could have just kicked me out or killed me, you know. She never stopped looking, and she never stopped trying until she died. How'd she die? Asterisk, asterisk, it happened when he was 12. She came home. After a long night at the bar, she found him quickly because he wasn't hiding at all. He was sitting on the couch waiting for her. She went to slap him, but when her arm was just an inch away, he caught her by the wrist, squeezed hard, looked her in the eyes, and told her no. When she tried to hit him with the other hand, he caught that one too. He let go, and she tried to hit him again and again, but each time he caught her arm. He didn't hit her back, but for the first time he defended himself. She ran to her room sobbing. I should have just hid, he said. She would have looked for me, and she would have found me, like always. But in the morning, it was he that found her dead in her bed, with another her checking in closets and behind furniture. I'm right here, he said. She turned. You found me. She walked toward him like she always did, eyes narrowed and fist raised to strike. But when she brought that fist down, it went swiftly through him, like a knife slicing a thin layer of smoke. She tried to hit him again and again as she screamed. Like a banshee, he backed away. Why do you want to hurt me? There's a demon inside you. You need to stop talking to ghosts. You're a ghost. He ran out of the house and called the police. But as he looked through the front window one last time, he saw her, searching for him. I think it has something to do with trauma, he said, or purpose. Sometimes I think they're the same thing. I was her trauma, and her purpose was to stop me. She thought beating me could stop me, and when she couldn't beat me anymore, she had no purpose. She's stuck living in a world where she's always trying to find me. even when I'm not there. When he was done talking, I told him to hide, and I looked for him harder than ever. The next day we went to see the ghost again. Why do you think he's still here? I asked. Trauma, I guess. And how come I can see him? You're probably connected somehow. You seen them more strongly when you are. We watched him for hours until he disappeared. I've always wondered where he goes when he's not there. Is he stuck somewhere in between our world and elsewhere? Does he choose to come back, or is he forced to? Over time, I began to feel strange and guilty about our hide and seek. Was I helping him heal him from his trauma, or forcing him to stay in it? I drifted away from him. We went from going to his apartment every day to hanging out once a week. He tried to reach out, but I always had some reason why I couldn't come over. Once a week turned to every other week. Then we were just texting every so often. At some point, we became strangers. I found a job as a tutor. It was full-time, and I found myself enjoying the work, looking forward to sessions, and feeling as though I did have a purpose, helping these kids get into college. Life was good. I didn't need to chase something extreme to feel like I was living. But like most experiences, once I settled into normalcy, I was bored again. The students seemed to get dumber and less motivated over time. There wasn't a point in what I was doing. These kids were all rich, and with their parents' money, they were going to be fine without my help anyway. I was just another servant to make their lives easier. In the same way that they could clean their houses without maids, they could study without a tutor. It would just take effort. When I got bored, I started reaching out again. I texted him a few times, and he didn't answer, but I couldn't blame him. After all, the last text he'd sent me was asking if I wanted to get dinner. 2 months later, and I'd never replied. I went to the street to watch the ghost again. I wondered what his trauma was. After a while, it felt like watching the northern lights must after enough time. It was cool and all, but if I couldn't be a part of it, what was the point? I wanted to live excitement. I didn't just want to watch. I got in my car and drove to his apartment. I knocked on his door, but when he didn't answer, I went home. I tried again the next day and the next. As ashamed as I am to admit it, I started to get angry. I treated him like a video game that wasn't working. He was the reason I couldn't have my fun, my excitement, my joy. There was only one of him. I couldn't just go buy another copy. So, one day, after sitting outside his apartment for 3 hours, I just opened the door. I called his name a couple of times. I shouted that it was me. I said I just wanted to make sure he was okay. He didn't answer, so I walked inside and started looking. I found myself checking all the places he used to hide back when we were together. Behind the couch, in the bedroom closet, under his bed. When I walked into his bathroom, the smell hit me. He was lying in the tub, curled into a ball yet so flat that he was almost sinking into it. After a moment, I realized that he was sinking into it. The body in the tub was his ghost. Oh God. I cried. He looked up at me and smiled. You found me. What happened to you? He didn't answer. Why didn't you tell me you were going to do this? I could have helped you, couldn't I have? You were using me. I paused for a second, tried to think of a response, then gave in, crying. Yes, I was, but I still care. I'm sorry. He didn't respond, just stayed curled in a ball. Why are you still here? Why can't you move on? Things are different. Are they better? He didn't respond for so long that I almost asked again. No, he said. Are you choosing to hide? Could you move on? Somewhere else, there's a door. but I don't know what's on the other side. You need to go. You don't want to be stuck here forever. If I go, then who will find me? There was nothing to say. It was too late. I left. I don't look for ghosts anymore. Story 5 ends here. Now, settle in for story 6. I think I'm the final test subject in an experiment I was never meant to know. I don't know when. I stopped trusting the edges of things. Not just people, though God knows that list is short now, but the actual edges of rooms, of memories, of sounds. I walk into a space and I don't look at what's in front of me anymore. I look at the corners. I look at what's just barely out of view. I listen for the way silence curls. There's a term in medicine, peripheral awareness. It's how we track threats in our environment without looking straight at them. You train yourself to catch motion in the margins. But lately, I think I've started to live there. I don't enter a room and look at what's in it anymore. I look at what's just out of it. The corners, the gaps behind door frames, that thin slit of shadow under the bed, like I'm trying to find the negative space where something used to be, or maybe where it still is, waiting. I guess this is my way of figuring out. Whether it's starting again, no one ever tells you that paranoia isn't a spike, it's a tide. You don't notice it rising until you're ankle deep in it, watching your own reflection dissolve in the water. And then one day, it's up to your chest, and you can't remember what dry felt like. That's what this is. A weather report, maybe. An autopsy. I'm writing this down not because I think it'll help, but because I need to know if I ever forget again. If I ever start calling it just stress, or just exhaustion, or just dreams. Maybe this will be the trail of breadcrumbs. I leave for myself. If I still know how to follow a trail, let me back up. My name's Maya. I'm 27. Used to work nights at Greystone Memorial Hospital. East Wing, primarily neuro-observation, graveyard shifts, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I didn't mind the hours. I liked being the quiet one, the background figure that flickered in and out of patient rooms like a shadow that knew how to work IVs. You'd be surprised how comforting a quiet nurse can be at 4:42 in the morning, when the morphine drip starts to wear off and your own thoughts are louder than the EKG. I wasn't one of those Florence Nightingale types. No lofty aspirations. I was in it for the stability, the routine, the fact that the world made sense in measurable units, milligrams, liters, vitals, charts. You fill in the form. You input the numbers. You go home, at least. That's how it used to be. The first time I felt it, that warping, that wrongness. I was in the break room, stirring powdered creamer into a mug of the worst coffee in the state. It was quiet. Fluorescents humming like they always do. Fridge ticking. Window reflected nothing. Just black glass with my own tired outline staring back. And then the silence changed. Everything was as it should be, except I don't know how to explain this without sounding like a freak. The silence wasn't right. It wasn't absence of noise silence. It was expectant. Like the room was holding its breath, waiting for something to arrive. And just under that silence was a sound I can only describe as wet static. You know when you plug in old medical equipment and there's that faint electronic fizz? Imagine that, but underwater. I turned around. The door was open. I hadn't left it open. And sitting there, dead center, on the break room table, was a manila folder. No name, no patient tag, no initials. Just a generic, off-brand folder, like the hundreds we use every week. Only this one was already open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, one sentence. Final phase protocol begins when subject regains suspicion. No header, no date, no hospital stamp. I stared at it for way too long. Thought maybe someone was pranking me, or some intern had misfiled one of those boring ethics study memos we all have to pretend to read. But this felt deliberate, not like a joke. When I touched the paper, it felt wrong, heavy, like it held more weight than it should. The ink was too black, too crisp, not even a font I recognized. The letters were sharp, needle-thin, too perfect to be from our overworked printers. They didn't look printed at all. They looked pressed, branded into the page, as if the sentence had been seared onto it like a surgical scar. I don't remember hearing footsteps. That's the part that still bothers me. No doors, no clicks, nothing. Just 1 second I was alone, and the next, when I glanced toward the hallway, every corridor outside the break room was empty. But not nobody's here, empty, thick, empty. Like the air itself was listening. Like something had just left. Later that night, I went to do my rounds. Or I tried to, because when I got to observation room 3B, the one with Mr. Halpin, stroke victim, mostly non-verbal, the door was shut. Not just closed, locked. That room never locked. It's not supposed to lock. Patient observation rooms can't lock from the outside. That's protocol, fire hazard, safety compliance. All of it. I knocked. Nothing. I swiped my badge. No green. Light. I tried again. Harder. Same result. No buzz. No click. Just that silent red light, pulsing like a flat line. I stood there for a while, stupidly, expecting something. For the door to unmake itself, maybe. I knew that room, and now I couldn't enter it. The longer I stared at the door, the more wrong it looked. It wasn't just closed, it was absent, as if it no longer belonged to the building. Fine, I thought. Maybe maintenance did something stupid. I walked to the security desk to check access logs. The guy at the monitor, Gary, I think he smelled faintly like boiled eggs. Looked up like I'd slapped him when I asked about 3B, ma'am. He said, carefully, like he was talking to a drunk person, East Neuro's been sealed off since May. That whole wing's under asbestos remediation. I blinked. Thought he was messing with me. I was literally in there 30 minutes ago, I said. I've been assigned there for the past 4 weeks. What are you talking about? Gary checked the monitor, scrolled through badge logs, frowned. Your card hasn't accessed E-Swing in over a month. He turned the screen toward me, blank. No entries, no logs, no lights. Like I'd never been there at all. And that's when things really started to come apart first. The dreams. Except I'm not sure they were dreams. In them, I'm lying on a table, not a hospital bed, not even in a room, on a slab, smooth, cold, stone, I think. Something primal in texture, like it belonged in a temple, not a hospital, or maybe a tomb. I couldn't move. Not my limbs, not my throat, not even my eyes. Just the sensation of being very, very witnessed. There's a light above me, the kind you see in ORs, but it's wrong to diffuse, flickering in pulses, like it's breathing. My limbs don't move. My chest doesn't rise. I feel like I'm awake, but the air is thick and viscous, like I'm inhaling honey, oil, congealed blood. There are voices, but they don't speak in words, just tones. Low, long, Dragging sounds like a cello string being pulled through mud. And something always happens at the end. Just before I wake up, a face leans over me, but there are no eyes, only mirrors. I wake up gasping every time I try to talk to someone, a supervisor, a colleague, hell, even my mum. But every time I started explaining, the words came out wrong, like they didn't fit in my mouth anymore, like I was trying to describe color to a blind person. Worse, things started vanishing. I don't mean disappearing, I mean vanishing from memory. I'd open my laptop and find an open tab for a patient record I didn't remember opening. I'd see my own handwriting on reports I didn't recall writing. There were phrases I'd never use. One note said, subject stable, no deviation from containment, not patient, subject. I don't know how long I can keep writing this. The lights in my apartment keep flickering, and tonight, when I came home from another shift they say I never clocked into, the folder was waiting. Same manila cover, new note, typed, centered, observation integrity confirmed. Proceed with final cognitive descent. My name was at the bottom, signed in my handwriting. Not forged, not scanned, not copied. Me, my looped, careful cursive. The way I sign prescriptions. The way I sign incident reports. And for a moment, just a moment, I wasn't afraid. Because it made sense. Because of course I would approve this. Of course I would consent to the next stage. Wouldn't I? Then I noticed something else. Something I shouldn't have. My ceiling fan was on, but I hadn't turned it on, and it was spinning too fast. Not dangerously fast, just too regular. Like a clock with no hands. Like it was keeping time for something else. That's when I saw them. On the wall, just past the corner of my vision, shadows that didn't belong to anything. Not cast by furniture, not cast by me, just there. Faint, elongated, arranged like observation chairs around a patient bed. And just faint enough that if I stared directly at them, they'd dissolve. So I don't look directly anymore. I watch. The edges, I watch the corners. I listen for the way the silence curls. Because I think the final phase has already begun. And I don't know if I'm the last one to notice or the first one to wake up.